It's good to see everybody here today. I'm glad that you've come to Park City's Rotary, and it might be a good time for all of us to stand up and greet one another, look around the room and see someone that you haven't said hello yet to, and be sure to greet them. Take a minute to do that. Thank you, Mary. Mary Bishop was supposed to do it. She's stuck in traffic, and this is going to be yours. It's right. It's right here. Okay. That's you. And get to the half place.
Is that me too, Nolan? Hey, how are you? Thank you. Glad you're here. Yeah, then the first one started. Not yet. Yeah, he's in my mom's son and legacy. He's doing a good job getting out to network. No, I'm never good at like network with the companies. I always feel weird asking, and I don't know why. I should.
Good deal. Mary, I'm going to be calling on you in just a minute, okay? What? Well, Eric. Eric, do you want to? So we're good. We're good. If I could have everybody's attention, I think we need to wrap up all this, all the festivities that we have going on. I think we are a fun club and a friendly club. So let me. I think it's time for us to get started, and if you'll please remain standing. Please remain standing. I'm going to call on Mary Bishop to come and lead us in our invocation, Pledge of Allegiance, and National Anthem. Mary?
Hello. This is the day the Lord has made. Let us rejoice and be glad in it. Beautiful fall day. We're
Going on and off, so use that one. Let me look at that one. Okay, you do.
okay.
Here we go.
All right. Okay. Let us take a deep breath. and relax into the moment and go to the Lord in prayer. Father, we do relax into you. We thank you for this day, this breath we take, for the privileges we have. We're so blessed to have the freedom, the resources, the people in our lives. Lord, you're a good God and you love us. We thank you for that. We thank you for accepting and loving us and working with us. And thank you for Rotary. We lift up those in service throughout the world. We pray this in your name. Amen. I pledge allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, you may be seated. Mark Casher is going to come around. I think that we have Happy Bucks there's the Happy Bucks container. If you have something that you'd like to tell everybody about that you're happy about, then please raise your hand and Mark Casher will come over and take a few bucks from you and you can express your happiness to him. Anyone? Now, oh my goodness. Mike Rawlings goes first. He's
okay. All right. I have a new grandbaby, so this is my first one. So,
wow.
So,
Daddy, congratulations.
So I'm happy that my number one Texas Longhorns will beat the
Cut his microphone, someone.
Sooners.
All right, there you go. There's got to be a bunch of Texas fans in here. Go ahead.
Here we go.
Cub Amos. Eric.
I can still be happy because the game hasn't started yet. Boomer Sooner.
All right.
I'll be there and bring it on. We're ready for it.
Okay, Annie up too there, Eric. We can't let you get by with anything. Cub Amos is right over behind you there. Mark?
I'm not going to be here next Friday, so I'm going to celebrate Texas victory today.
Okay. Laurie?
Thank you. I'm happy because I want everybody to notice our beautiful golden eagles that are now on top of our flags. They've been missing for several months, and I wanted to thank Herb Hammond for researching them and purchasing them for the club.
Herb, stand up. We need to give you a round of applause. Herb Hammond right there. Way to go.
That's right. Lock the doors and pass the plate, right?
That's it.
Enough talk about OU Texas. How about SMU in the top 25?
Oh, there you go. Good job. Someone else. Anyone? All right. With that taken care of, we'd like to introduce our guests, and I'm going to start this. I would like to introduce you to my smoking hot wife, Nancy Duck. Nancy, stand up. They can't quite see you if you're seated. Isn't she cute? She is the reason that I'm anything at all in this world. Yes, ma'am. Okay, got to shut up, Nolan. All right. Then there's Barb. You're going to have to stand up. And Bert. This is Bert and Barb. Bert and Barb. Weathersby. They are our best friends. Nancy and our best friends. This is B&B. Let's say that real loud. B&B. All right, good deal. Welcome them. They're wonderful. And what? Oh, yeah. And Nancy and I are in and in, so that we go together. All right. After that, go ahead.
I'd like to introduce you all to my friend Travis Chick. We met recently, actually yesterday, and met recently at a networking event. Had a little one-on-one yesterday. I said, you ought to come to Rotary sometime, and here he is. He works with Mark Casher at Spectrum Financial.
All right, welcome him.
You guys stand up if you don't mind, please. I'd like to introduce you all to two of my great guy friends who also happen to be bankers. Clement George, who you have recently seen, if you think about it, back in July. He was here on behalf of Frost Bank and the contribution of Frost Bank to the Rotary Club of Park City's 4th of July parade. He graduated high school with my daughter, Charlotte. So this is Clement George. Also, Michael Knopick. Michael Knopick and I go back really far with his family. I worked for his dad. His father worked for me in my law firm at Gary Stahl and Spencer, and now Michael is with a proud participant in Cadence Bank. Cadence Bank is a successor to a couple of other banks that I knew from a while ago. But anyway, y'all welcome Clement and Michael.
Thank you so much. Well, many of you know that I was a member first at the Rotary Club of Fort Worth. Well, Courtney Lewis, who is with Cadence Bank, still refers wonderful people to me, and this is David Wysocki that she referred to us, and he's here today.
Hello, like she said, I'm David Wayaki. I'm very excited to be here because Courtney Lewis was actually the second person to tell me about Rotary Club. The first person was actually NOLAN DUCK. So after the second time, I was like, for sure I have to come, right? So,
all right.
And thank you.
Took you long enough,
Thank
though.
you.
Yeah, I'm happy to have my wife, Esther, with me today. Welcome to Rotary.
My friend Rachel Roberts is back with us today. I just caught her with her mouth full of food, so but Rachel's a great person. She's a fractional CMO, and known her for a long time, and hoping that she's out visiting clubs. So everyone, please come say hi to her and make sure that she stays here with us, because she'd be a real asset. So welcome, Rachel.
After all, we are the fun club. We've been designated the fun club in our district. So anyway.
Hi, my guest today is Nick Harper, my husband, and he's a member of White Rock Rotary.
Welcome. I've got one more right over here.
Hi, my guest today is Professor Swag. I'm going to let you introduce yourself.
Hi, I'm Gary Rugoff. Thank you for your hospitality and having me here today. I own a company called swagstore.net, and we have fun every day using creative merchandise to help people accomplish their goals. Every hour is different. That's why we have fun. 1 hour, we're working with Southwest Airlines on their new logo, and the next hour, I might be helping a rock band with their tour. So I have fun, I work hard, and I'm glad to be here. Thank you for having me.
Also, that's my daughter. I brought her today. That's Romantica Jordan. So.
There's some folks here from People Magazine, and we'll let them introduce themselves.
Hello, my name is Quita Johnson, and like I said, I'm with People Newspapers, and then we have Courtney Moslin with AEG, our guest, and I'll let my colleague introduce herself.
Hi, I'm Kim Hermes. I'm with People Newspapers, and I have Alan Rose here from Communities Foundation.
Yes, I'm Alan Rose from Communities Foundation of Texas. Thanks for having me.
All right, thank you. I think that covers the bases. Sean Foster, come and talk to us about our marketplace advertising.
For our visitors, one of the ways we raise money for the club and for various causes is we sell advertisements on the back of our program. So I draw your attention to Kyle today. Today's advertiser is Kyle Marmillion. Kyle enjoys volunteering in the community, coaching youth lacrosse, traveling, playing golf, and building out his career in financial services. As I said, his picture's right here on the back. He's a business insurance advisor with McGriff, and they say when it comes to protecting our clients' most valuable asset, we believe they should never settle for less than the best. Through expertise, resources, and relationships, we deliver solutions that exceed expectations. And they have 4 core principles: integrity, we do what we say every time; determination, we relentlessly pursue success on behalf of our clients; passion, we are specialists in our field, driven to serve our clients; and collaboration, we build relationships with our teammates, clients, carriers, and trading partners, working together for the best solutions. And he says if there's anything that falls outside of that, they use the Rotary Club's 4-way test in securing the best result for the owners, C-suite, and council. So please join me in thanking Kyle Marmillion.
Right, good. Thank you so much. And now we have the one and only Greg Pape to tell us about the Rotary Foundation. Thank you, Greg, for all you do. Appreciate you.
Thank you, President Nolan. Ed Halleck is a fellow Rotarian. He thought he knew what a hurricane was till Helene hit the Gulf Coast of Florida. Quoting Ed, he said, "I've been here 35 years, and this is the worst storm I've ever seen." Ed is a member of the Rotary Club of Seminole Lake, Florida. Of the 80 houses on my street, probably 78 took water. Some of my neighbors took 4 feet of water. There are 2 or 3 feet of mud in most people's houses. Even if they and their fellow club members weren't directly affected, Rotary members all over the southeastern U.S. immediately offered funds, supplies, and their own labor. The Rotary Club of Dunedin North, Florida, rented a 26-foot moving truck to collect donations. It's full of shovels and rakes, cases of water, utility bags, and knives to cut up and remove wet carpet. The club has set up 4 distribution centers where people can get supplies. Ladies and gentlemen, this is why we are Rotarians. You become close to your Rotary family. When we can support and help each other, it becomes impactful. Tom Swift, come on up here and join us. Just for the benefit of our visiting mayors, the Rotary International Foundation is made up of 1.4 million members spread out over the globe in 200 countries. In the DFW area, we have over 2,000 Rotarians, 62 Rotary clubs. And the benefits of giving to the Rotary Foundation is that we help growing local economies, we support education, we're involved with the global polio eradication initiative. Globally, we're down to 2 countries, Afghanistan and Pakistan. And we keep moving forward. We promote peace. We have programs that save mothers and children. We provide clean water, sanitation and hygiene, and we're protecting the environment. Today, having all of those area focus, seeing Rotary in action in Florida, we have a fellow Rotarian right here who has joined us in 2014, and not only supporting the Rotary Foundation, but in 2016 through 18, Tom was membership and marketing chair. He was part of the steering committee in 2017, worked on the July 4th parade, et cetera, et cetera. He's an incredibly committed Rotarian, and today he's climbed up a steep ladder, and he's at the 8th level of the Rotary Foundation. Tom Swift.
Right.
God bless you, brother.
Congratulations. Thank you. Thank you, Greg. Appreciate you.
Thank you.
Let's give Greg another hand because he does all kinds of things to help us move forward in this effort. There's a few, have a few announcements I'd like to make. First of all, tomorrow, next Monday, the 14th, we're having our program committee meeting. Now, I said this last week, who is on the program committee? Everybody. So show up at it's going to be held at the YMCA, the Moody YMCA, at 6 o'clock on Monday afternoon. There's going to be pizza, and it might even be warm. So the earlier you get there, the better off chance you'll have of having warm pizza. So be sure to be there because our programs are very important. We look forward to being here every week. One of the reasons is because of these programs. And on Saturday, the 26th, Susan Glenn over here is leading us out in the packing day for North Texas Food Bank. Now, all you have to do to sign up is go online and do that. I was there last year. Nancy and I were both there last year. Had a great time doing it. It's a great day, 9 to 11 or so at the North Texas Food Bank building. So be sure to sign up for that. And then there's another thing I'm supposed to announce every time we meet pretty much. November the 15th is going to be our club's annual meeting, and we'll be making some important decisions. We'll be deciding who's going to be in the different areas of responsibility moving forward into the next Rotary year. So I hope that you'll be here for that. Now I'd like to call on Jason Graves to come, and we're going to do our raffle drawing. And now there needs to be a drum roll somewhere about this. There you go. There you go. Now Jason, Michael Rawlings here is going to pick out the winning ticket. Now don't look too hard either. Yeah, there you go. No. Just one. You got the right one. Now he's going to bring it up to me, and I'm going to announce who it is, or you are. Thank you, Michael. I appreciate that. Thank you. Now, the winning number, just so you know, the winning number is 1570. Who has that number? 1570. Okay, 1570. Richard, is that you? No. Okay, well, then sit down. No, I'm kidding. 1570. That's it. You have it? All right. Well, come on up. Now, what we'll do, Richard is going to have the opportunity to draw the ace of spades out of this deck of cards. Now, if he gets the ace of spades, he gets half of the money that we've been gathering for the raffle. How much is that? $506. Now, some of you math majors can figure that out as to how that's going to be if he wins, if he draws the ace of spades. Now, I'm going to shuffle them up first. Hold on. Shuffle. I don't do a very good job of it. Anyway, here we go, Richard. The tension mounts.
That's a lot of cards.
I know. There you go. As a remembrance of this failure you've had today, you get to keep that card, okay? All right. Now, with that said, I would like to, it looks like I'm the chair of the day, so I get to introduce Tom Leppert and Michael Rawlings. Now, they really don't need much of an introduction. They have been mayors of Dallas. They are well known. They have written. They're really pretty important folks, which we really enjoy having you here with us. So now I'm going to give you one microphone. Okay. And Michael, I'm going to give you yours as soon as you sit down. I'm going to tell them some things first. Now, what Tom and Mike have insisted on doing, I've tried to talk them out of it several times, but what they want to do is, as they are speaking, if you have a question, now don't blurt it out, raise your hand, somebody will call on you, and then you can ask that question. And now they're going to introduce themselves. Each of them are going to do that first, and then once they get involved in you know, their talk, if you have a question, then please feel free to ask it. But I'm going to ask you to do this. I'm going to ask you to ask that question in as loud a voice as you can come up with, so that everybody can hear. But if everybody doesn't hear, they're going to repeat the question as well. So we are looking forward to hearing from you. Let's give them a great round of applause.
Thank you. Well, thank you very much.
Thank you, Nolan.
Well, both Mike and I have had a chance to speak to your club in the past, as well as other Rotary clubs, and I can tell you it has always been a very enjoyable experience for all of us, not only in terms of the hospitality, but also in terms of the educated understanding of our political system, and especially our local community. I got a call not too long ago to ask if Mike and I would speak at this Rotary Club today in regard to the presidential election. My reaction was, are you kidding? You're crazy. But nevertheless, we decided that we would do it. As was indicated, we want to make this as open and engaging and as useful to you as you can. So Mike and I are going to go back and forth, share a little bit of perspectives on the thing. And if you've got a question, don't hesitate to bring it up. Now, Mike and I have an awful lot in common. Both served as mayors back to back. And what was interesting, before I came into office, there had not been a business person that had been mayor of Dallas for about 40 or 50 years. Yeah, in fact, when I first ran, what I was told was a business person has no chance of being elected, just doesn't happen. What was fun was when Mike was elected, nobody ever asked that question. And I think we made some progress. But Mike, you and I come at things a little bit different, but we've got some commonality and worked on a project recently together.
Yeah, we, I think, are both business people. We both love Dallas. I think we're both very patriotic. We are both kind of in the center, but you come from the right side. You're kind of center right, and I'm center left. I have been a Democrat my whole life, and you've, I think, been a Republican all your life, right? Okay. Now, the key, though, is that as we see our world today, Tom and I realize we have more in common with each other than sometimes our own parties. And so we worked on a project called No Labels. And No Labels is an organization, it's a bipartisan organization trying to get Democrats and Republicans to pass common sense agenda items in Congress. That's pretty much like trying to solve world peace, I think, but it's doing that. And then it started getting dialed up when the presidential election came. And we did some research, and we found that the expected candidates were going to be Donald Trump and Joe Biden. And 70% of America said, please, I want another choice. I'm not gonna go with that choice. We gotta have another choice. So we started working on an insurance policy, is what we called it. It's saying, is there a chance to bring somebody else in if those are the two candidates? Because the polls showed that there's a very good chance of that other candidate winning. And so we did a lot of work and talking and recruiting and advocating. In the long run, we didn't, okay? We decided that we weren't going to bring anybody if they didn't have a clear chance to win. We didn't want to be a spoiler, and to make sure that those are the two candidates that ultimately run. And now it's Trump and Harris, and those things, we wouldn't have had a candidate in that case because it was really about the Trump-Biden offer. But it was fun to work on that, and we realized when we put the policies together, kind of a common sense agenda, 90% of the things we agree with.
Yeah, and a lot of things like energy policy, immigration, those sorts of things, those are all solvable issues. Unfortunately, where we stand today isn't quite the situation. You know, when you look at the presidential election now, Mike, it's interesting. I think sometimes we get too close, but if you step back, it's fascinating to think that you've got one individual that's running for president, that participated in no debates has probably the highest negative ratings of any candidate in that position, at least for the last 30 or 40 years. On the other side, the candidate that is in place didn't earn a single delegate vote. In fact, the person who ended up with all the delegate votes is completely out of the picture right now. And probably that candidate is the least vetted presidential candidate that we have had in 150 years. It's fascinating to think where we are.
Yeah, it's when you think about how we got here. I was looking at the title of this. It's really remarkable. You can never really predict history, but you can kind of start to see it back when, I mean, President Clinton and President Bush ran, and people thought, my goodness, those people are the two most opposite people in the world. And now they're so close. But, I mean, they really are. They're almost good friends on stuff. And they agree on so much. So
they make a lot of money on joint speaking engagements.
Right, exactly. But you start to see the division start to take place. And one of the reasons why that division starts taking place is what's happening in the state legislatures. When a state legislature wins a dominant role in that, like we're a very Republican group, those folks get to carve up all your congressional districts. Same on the Democratic side, and it's really gerrymandered, something American citizens have laughed at for many, many years, these crazy congressional districts, but it keeps those parties in power. And so if you're a young person wanting to do public service and decide not the city, you're going to go kind of the state and the national, you have to make a pick. You really have to decide, am I going to be a Democrat or am I going to be a Republican? Now guess who comes out for the primaries? The most rabid, loyal Democrats and the most rabid, loyal Republicans.
And well less than 20% of the people vote in primary elections. So it varies. Mike said it's the extreme. It mirrors Republican, Democrats, exactly the same, but it's pushed to the extreme on both sides.
And then you turn up the dial of social media and the rhetoric about how a political advisor will tell you, if you want to win, make sure that everybody knows he's a bad guy, okay? And so you dial that up because that works with people, and now suddenly you start to see the divisions take place at a local level, and then it gets on the state level, and then on the national level. And people jump to the national level, and they say, I'm not even going to go through that. President Trump, he never won any elections. He just went for the big job, and suddenly everybody goes, wow, that's how I feel about life. And the division is so great that, as I said, over 2/3 of America says, I'm not happy with this. I want something different.
I often ask to groups, I'll ask them to raise their hand, how many of you think the American political system is working? And there'll usually be one or two people that are drunk in the back that'll raise their hand, but other than that, you won't have it. But my response is, it is actually working perfectly for the people who designed it. The Republican National Committee and the Democratic National Committee, it works perfectly. They are able to raise money based on exactly what Mike said. Those are evil people, you need to give me your money, or those are evil people, you need to give me your money. And so in these primaries, you get a very small segment of the population that participates. In the House of Representatives, there are arguably today only 30 to 50 competitive seats, only 30 to 50. And there's another piece of the gerrymandering in addition to political. It is a sociological one. And that is, if you look across the nation, there are only 6 states today where you have a Republican and a Democrat representing the state in the Senate. In 44 of those, it is all Democrat or all Republican. So we have ended up being a very divided nation, partisan, but it's driven by the two political parties. And this whole idea in the primaries, if I can go ahead, a Republican, and get further to right of you, I don't have to worry about the general election, I'll get elected. Or if you're a Democrat, how can I get further to the left of you, because I don't have to worry about a general election in my Democratic seat.
You know, I think one of the most important things that George Washington left us was the warning as he left office in his speech. he was very concerned about the party system in America. This is George Washington. He said that these parties are going to be more worried about keeping power than doing what's right for America. So it's an honor and a pleasure to sit up here with Tom and other people. And now some of my Democrat friends on the far left aren't happy that I make peace at times. And the same thing with Tom. He gets a lot of grief from folks on the right. But that's what I think, we always say, country before party. Yeah.
And I think you even see this in something we need to be conscious of. And we'll talk a little bit about the presidential election, and then we'll give you some perspective on the Senate and House races, which are going to be very.
All right, so who's going to win? Who's going to win?
Let's hold that for a second.
Okay.
I will tell you, to Mike's point, though, one thing you need to keep in mind. We look at all the ads of people running for the House and running for the Senate. My argument, it doesn't make any difference anymore. It's only a matter if they're Republican or Democrat. Because the way the parties are set up within Congress today, it is almost impossible on important votes for a Republican to go against the Republican leadership or a Democrat to go against the Democratic leadership. So on the big issues, the reality of it is, it doesn't matter who you vote for. If you tend to be on the right, you want a Republican. If you tend to be on the left, you want a Democrat. Because they are going to vote in step with what the leadership says. We're really becoming more of a parliamentary system. Yep. So, Mike, let me throw it back to you. Okay. Before we get into that, and we want to give you the prognosis.
You're going to make me pick first.
Well, in a minute. Talk to me about what you think are the big issues that are going to influence this. So before we talk about cancer, what are the issues we ought to be conscious of?
Well, I think the big gestalt that's happening now is changed in the last 3 months. And it really is a matter of who's the biggest change agent, okay? Because most of America is not happy. I was in the advertising business forever, and I did research, and I found out that consumers were much better at complaining than they were in complimenting. So you always would go to what your biggest issue was, and if you could solve that for, like, milk, the biggest issue is freshness. So if you convince people you're fresher, you're going to win. And in the political world, people are just, I'm not happy. I need something different. Inflation's too high. This issue's too high. This issue. So change is important for people. And that's why Biden, I think, had a real issue, because he was an incumbent. And so,
what's interesting is the last 2 weeks, the polls would say Harris has actually outseated Trump as being the change agent.
Trump was the change agent. Even though he had been president, it was like, well, I'm going to just blow everything up. And it's like, okay, that sounds good to me. And now Harris, with her energy and how she's positioned herself, has made Trump about yesteryear. She's saying, let's forget all this stuff and all the bad stuff. Let's move to a new thing. And she's been very clever about that. She's actually impressed me. I was not impressed, as we thought about her being that candidate. But when she did, she kind of captured that, and I think that's why she's edged up just a little bit. But it's tight. It's tight.
And as she came off of August, she went nearly straight up in terms of both viewed as favorability, change agent, other measures in that. But what's interesting, in the last week or so, she's turned down. And all of a sudden, you're seeing now that favorability and that perception of her as a candidate has really started to tick down. That's a bad trend. Why do you think that's happened?
Well, you've been around her a little bit. The lusters, I mean, she was the new shiny car. And it was like, wow, that looks pretty good. Okay.
Has she made a mistake not going out to the media?
I think that she's not been substantive enough, okay? I think people were interested in her. She's wants a little bit more. And she's kind of riding that play out. But she's got to kind of dial it up, I think. But it's like, look, it's all about the swing states, as you know, and making sure that Pennsylvania and Michigan, North Carolina, Georgia, how those things approach. It's really sad that you and I don't have anything to do with the election.
If you look at the election, it's fascinating to look at the map. There are 7 states that are called the swing states. There's 7 states. I pulled up 538 last night, which is kind of a organization that pulls a lot of the polls together, does those. In those 7 states, there is no state that's more than 1.5 point difference between them. Not one of those states. It is amazing when you take all the polls and put them together. Now, I'm going to come back, which you just said, Mike, and say, I'm not sure you're right. I think there's only one state that makes a difference.
Okay, what is it?
Pennsylvania.
Yeah.
Whoever wins Pennsylvania, in my view, wins the game. If you look at the map, you need to have 270 electoral seats. The way it plays out now, granted it's only 1 point, but Trump is ahead in Nevada, Arizona, Georgia, and North Carolina. Kamala is ahead in Pennsylvania, Michigan, and Wisconsin. If it falls that way, the final electoral vote is 270 to 268, the difference of 2. There are, interestingly enough, if you really want to play games, there are 2 seats in Maine and 1 in Nebraska. Those are the only states that do not do a winner-take-all, that are either likely Republican or likely Democrat. If one of those flip for whatever reason, you have the potential of it being so close it's 269 to 269. It's a very interesting play on all this. That is literally how close this whole is. So for that, now I'm going to have you critique Harris's campaign, and I'm going to come back and critique Trump's campaign.
So, first of all, you got to kind of leverage what you're at, okay? I mean, who you are. It needs to be authentic, okay? She is a young, energetic a woman that believes in the freedom of reproductive rights and the belief that she was a middle-class kid, and she understood that middle-class thing. And what every American wants, Mr. Voter, is freedom and opportunity to grow in this great country, okay? And that's what she's kind of started with, and I think that's been very, very good. Now, there's a new dynamic starting to be played here that I haven't figured out how she is doing on this. But this is turning into a little bit of a girl versus boy sort of thing, okay? Because she's got the women, and I've seen in polls, and Trump's got the men, and she's got to figure out how to talk to her bros a little bit more. So I think that's she's got to dial that up, or she's not going to win in the long run. I'd be saying, you know, has she ever even been to a football game? Okay, you know, has she ever? I mean, does she ride a motorcycle? Do something, okay, that makes me feel that I can relate to you, and not be so girly girl and woke. She's dialing back the woke thing, but everybody still sees that underneath her surface. So she's got to kind of, I mean, she's got to make some jokes that guys would laugh at, okay?
I think she's had a tough week, too, as she's gone out and done some of these View or some of these kind of friendlier interviews. They haven't come across particularly well. And as a result, it raises the question of, is there really substance behind it? She did a CBS interview and was asked about Israel. It was such a rambling question, they had to cut it out. You never saw it. So there's really some inklings like that, which may be that indication that I said just a moment ago of some challenges. Let's
so talk about Trump.
Yeah, well, that's a target-rich environment.
Okay.
I think much like 2020, Trump is going to be his own worst enemy. 2020, my view was he should have won that by any measure that you've got. It was him and him alone that lost it by just making kind of stupid moves after stupid moves. Again, you look at the candidate, and it's really a flawed candidate. It's really a challenge. Now, with that said, he's got an enormous base. I think what's going to come back, though, is the money is going to be a factor. Now, Kamala Harris has an awful lot more money. That's why you've seen all of her national ads, not necessarily on local stations, but you're seeing them on national stations, because she has so much money that it's actually difficult now to go back into Pennsylvania stations, Atlanta stations, et cetera, and place that.
She ran an ad in the Alabama-Georgia game. It was like, what is she doing in a Southeast Conference in-season game? And she's running an ad because she had that money. Yeah.
Now, and which is a great advantage. If you want to look at the other side, the challenge is she's running all this money, but her momentum stopped. And so there's a real concern on that. She's not making it in the polls, and you'd hope putting that money. Trump doesn't have the money, but what he has done is put money in, and a lot of the Republican infrastructure is really concerned about this. He has not put money into a ground game at all. What he has basically done, unlike the Democrats who have put money into the ground game, he has outsourced nearly all of his get out to vote, all those sorts of things. And most folks are not very comfortable that those outside groups are doing a very effective job doing it. He has also put a lot of the money, though, into poll watchers, legal resources, et cetera, those sorts of things. I think both of those actually pretend very poorly in terms of when you get right to the end of the election, because getting people out to vote is going to be critical. It's getting people who kind of are on the fence, those sorts of things, and getting your people and make sure they vote. And I think Harris is in a much better position on that.
Yeah, no question. She's got an organization that has been mobilized for her. But you're right, it's all going to be in Pennsylvania, and it's just remarkable how much presence there is in Pennsylvania and how much hand-to-hand that's going on there.
Be thankful you don't live in Pittsburgh or Philadelphia, because you wouldn't see anything about ads.
No, I summer in Montana, and I couldn't believe how much, because the Senate race, okay, how much advertising. You don't even see a car ad anymore. I mean, it's just all Senate stuff that up there.
So who's going to win?
Look, I have gone back and forth. I thought Trump would win handily when it was Biden, okay? That's why I got really motivated in No Labels, because I was more anti-Trump than I was, and I said, okay, let's find another candidate. But when Kamala came to bear and came out, it was like, this is going to be tighter. I've thought for some time, my head says Trump, but my gut says it's going to be Harris. That in the long run, it's just that people are tired of the noise. They're tired of it, and she may get, just an inch up. Policy-wise and all the stuff you've talked about, I think leans towards Trump. There's just something I'm smelling, not because they love Kamala so much. It's more about their exhaustion quotient.
Again,
what do you think?
If you push me, I'm going to get to Harris, but it's not very strong, and I'll tell you why. If you look at this election, I think the worst outcome is it's really, really close. That's a real problem for the nation. So I'd like to tell you, whoever wins, I hope they win by a whole lot. There's no indication that's going to happen. I think it will be very, very, very close.
Explain to everybody why that's true, or I'll tell you my version of that. And that is, these parties need to be destroyed, and they need to be rebuilt. And if somebody doesn't lose by a whole bunch, they're always going to think, well, I was pretty good, and I got to be there. And the Democrats need awakening, and the Republicans need to as well.
And the other side of that is it's going to be litigated. It'll just be litigated and litigated. Well, the vote's going to be what it is, so we'll see what it comes. I think there's a couple of things that you want to look for, though, as you come down to it. One is the undecided vote. There's still a chunk of undecided vote out there, and the polls would say it's significant. I think those folks are lying, by the way. I think they've decided. But the undecided vote, if you look at it, is more female than male, is more educated than uneducated, Both of those fall towards Harris at the end. But here's the other question from the other side to ask. We still have, and Mike talked about it earlier, of what the polls when it was Biden-Trump, but we still have in the 60% region that don't want either one of the candidates.
Even today.
Even today with Senator Harris and with President Trump. One thing to watch when you get to the polls, and I think it's important because it was what the entire game in 1980 was, and that is, will people pull back and say, it's not the candidate anymore, but it's the direction of the country? What is the direction of the country that I want to take? Is it towards a traditional Republican of smaller government, et cetera, or is it something where we need to take more action and direct on particular issues? Abortion could be very one of those and that sort of thing. But do they step back and say, what's the direction? Because it was very interesting. In 1980, if you remember, the polls were literally close up to the last moment. Jimmy Carter did a rally in Seattle, Washington the night before. It was a great rally. Great enthusiasm, et cetera. He got on Air Force One to go back to Washington the Monday evening before the election. He sat down with his pollster, and the pollster told him, you will be decimated tomorrow. Everything had turned within the last 2 or 3 days. So it'll be interesting to see if that directional piece comes. So I still think that undecided kind of falls towards Harris, but doggone it, this is really, really close.
That's a good point. The last couple of days it'd be there, yeah.
And there could be still, I think the one issue that's out there is kind of the October surprise to be aware of, and it's the Israeli-Iran situation. That still has the potential to blow up. If it does, it probably favors Trump because it'll be manufactured by Netanyahu, who is closer to Trump. So with that, Senate. Who's going to win the Senate?
I think Cruz will. I think Colin will come much closer, okay, than he has before. I saw a poll that it says it's not hard red, but leaning red now, okay, by 2, 3 points. I mean, you've got kind of the same situation, but not quite as much energy with Colin as you do with Harris. Okay?
I think Colin's awareness is, he hadn't had the awareness going into it.
Yeah, he didn't have the brand, he didn't have the brand ID. He's
so who takes the Senate nationally?
You know, I think the Republicans will, but I'm contrary. I'm seeing a lot of polls that say the Democrats will have the Senate.
If I had to bet, I'd say the Republicans get it by 1.
Yeah.
There's two. The focus is on 2 races. One is West Virginia. That'll be a flip. The Republicans head by 30 points, so that's done. So if you do that, it's 50-50. We're 51-49 now. It goes 50-50. What Mike was talking about earlier was Montana. The Republicans up there by 4 or 5 points. In fact, a lot of the money is actually shifted now from Montana and is going into other states because they've given up on Montana, and some of it's coming to Texas. There are some Democratic players that actually feel Texas is now a better play than Montana.
Yeah. And understand what the marketplace wants. And when I talk about marketplace, I'm talking about financial marketplace. They kind of like what our predictions are because they would like a House divided. They want the president to be in one camp and the Congress to be another camp, so nobody does anything. Because remember, investors like predictability. That's all they want, as opposed to something that swings hard.
I would tell you in the last, on Monday, there are 3 significant donors on the Republican side, names you would recognize. They just put $50 million into Michigan, into Pennsylvania, and into Wisconsin in the Senate races. So they don't think those are lost. The polls I look at, it's beyond what you can come back to in the last 25 days. So on the House, I tell you, that is 50-50. It may actually be decided by a Republican in New York who has just come out, hired his sister, mother, et cetera, to work for him, and it probably will cost. It's close enough that it could go both ways. It will probably all come down to reapportionment, which you usually don't have in a 24 election. Alabama and Louisiana will get additional seats for the Democrats. In North Carolina, the Republicans will probably get an additional 4, so it's going to be really close at 50-50. The last thing to watch on the presidential is kind of the breakup. Watch the Black and Hispanic vote. The Black and Hispanic vote is much better now for Harris than it was for Biden.
It was going away.
But it is not anywhere close to where Biden was in 2020. The view is that she probably has gotten enough white males to come over that it may offset that, but she's not in as good a shape as she was in 2020. Okay, you and I quit, and let's talk to the smart people.
Yeah, question. Let's do that real quick.
I've got a quick question. First of all, thank you guys for coming. You're former mayors. We do appreciate your being here. Presidential election is important. The Senate's important, but some of us live in the city of Dallas, and I've noticed that you all have banded together with some friends and are opposing the city charter election for S, T, and U, I believe are the right letters. Yep. Tell me a little about that.
Mike and I are in agreement. Tell them why.
Every 10 years, we in the city of Dallas have to review our charter. It's our constitution. The way you get something in a charter is from the city council and a charter commission that comes up with ideas. You can also go around the city and get items if you have a petition and you get enough signatures. An individual has got 3 items on it called S, T, and U. And on the surface, they look kind of good, okay? But underneath this thing, they're very, very dangerous. And what we started talking, and we realized that every living mayor, every city council person, every former city council person, every state rep, every county person thought these were terrible, and we all got together. Let me just tell you what they are really briefly. S is that anybody can sue the city at any time. Cities have what's called immunity. So if your EMT shows up late, you can't sue the city for that, okay? And it's just no other city in America has this. They want us to be able to get rid of that so any citizen can sue the city at any time. T is we run a city manager form of government, and they want the city manager to be fired and or get raises based on a survey of 1,400 people every year. Now, I wouldn't take that job, and I don't think any decent city manager would take that job. And then U seems something we really care about, and that's police. They mandate how many police officers we hire. And so you go, well, that can't be so bad. We've been trying to hire more police officers every time, and that money gets frozen if you don't spend it that way, and you have no flexibility. And so all the chiefs of police say this is a terrible thing. And what you don't want to do is hire just warm bodies and give them guns, and then you're going to get back and everybody's going to start to sue you. And so all these things are terrible. And so it's kind of ruined our October, okay? We were going to probably be going to football games, and now we're out trying to talk to people about this. So
please
vote no,
STU. We talked, go ahead. That question was on the all-red Cruz race.
Yeah, I was saying that I think Cruz is going to win by just a hair on that. And all-red is, I said Colin Allred. And he's got a lot of momentum. He's got a lot of Republicans switching over as well. I talked to a lot of Republicans that are going to vote for Colin but won't ever come out publicly and say it. But this is still a red state. It's a Republican state.
I share Mike's view. Keep in mind, too, Cruz has not been very popular in general elections. 6 years ago when he ran, he won by less than 3 points. The governor was on the ballot at that time. The governor won by over 20 points.
Okay, so I want to tie us back to your conversation to begin with the options that we get for president. Hit on a pet peeve of mine, which is we have options that you can't be president at 25. Okay, I want a limitation. And this summer when we
Actually, it's 35. The Constitution says 35.
Yes, it's 35. So I want the other end,
How about 75? I'll take 75. Can I?
Mike's still got a couple good years in him.
No. Yeah.
Fair enough. Appreciate it.
Well, it's constitutional amendments. That's a good example about your question. It takes a majority of states, the two-thirds, excuse me. It takes a huge act of God to get something changed like that. And this guy can get
It's
the
got to pass
referendum.
House
It's
and
gonna
Senate
change
by
the
two-thirds,
whole
and then it's
city.
got to pass the states.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's fair. We're going to get everything. Everybody. What would be a proposal to try to change that structuring of the extremes on both sides leading to the primaries?
Yeah. Well, first of all, the way you asked the question, I want to make sure, because I don't think you heard us. You said it couldn't be sustained. I think it's going to be sustained for a long time. Okay, so it's there, and I'm a simple guy. Okay, I keep it simple. I wouldn't go to parliamentary stuff. I would just figure out how you can easily get on the ballot as a third party, because right now it is near impossible to really start up a third party. And on a national level, you have to spend $60 to $70 million to get on ballots. You have to have the right person. It's very, very hard. If the SEC will stop mergers and blow up companies that they get too monopolistic, they ought to take on the Democrats and the Republicans, okay? They ought to blow that up. And I mean, I think we'd have a lot more free trade.
And actually, there's a professor at Harvard that has done that analysis and found that they are the most monopolistic of any industry in the nation.
So change state laws is the question.
I'd also change the primary system. We can talk about that later.
Yeah. Well, you're right. Yeah. No. Yeah. Well, first of all, it was the most embarrassing thing in 2016 when you saw how bad they missed it. I thought people should be sued for malfeasance. I mean, it was so bad. Now, people learn, and it is getting better. It was better in 20. Is better in 22, okay? The predictability of this stuff. I know. It's still, you're right about that. They miss the big picture of this stuff. The key is communication. You can't get a hold of people now. Used to, you could call people up in the home and they would have those calls, and now you can't do it. So I have no interest in starting a polling company, though.
No, you're right. It's the best you've got. But the one thing I would say is, with all the things, it's also not that bad. Even in 2016, Wisconsin was only missed by about 3.5 points, which was the margin of error.
Yeah.
Y'all talked about the presidency and the Senate. What about the House? What's your prediction there?
The House right now, if you look at it, is 50-50. If you look at the betting on it, or if you look at the polls, it is right at 50-50. So you could have, as I mentioned, that New York congressman, which in theory he was going to win on Republicans, is going to lose because of it. That may be enough to tip it. I do think it's important to note that if it's that close, the Republicans have proven that they can't govern. So if they win it, they're not going to be able to govern. If the Democrats win, they are going to be able to hold it together, and it will be more advantageous for the Democrats than it will be for the Republicans.
Yeah, I think my instinct is the Democrats take the House, they lose the Senate. You know, I mean, you said something. if you really want, listen to us, go to the Vegas odds. These guys are brilliant. I mean, how close they get it to all this stuff, because they look at all the data and everything, and it's remarkable.
And you could pull that up. Just Google betting
Vegas
sites for
odds,
presidential
yeah.
election. And
Okay, no, thank you. Yeah. You know, I want to tell you a story to underline what you just said. A guy named Matthew Dowd, I don't know if you saw him, he was on the ABC Sunday show, Talking Head for years, was a Bush pollster. And I asked him, I brought him in for my mayor's election, okay? And I started talking to him, and I said, tell me how America could go from Bill Clinton to George Bush, which to me at that time seemed a lot different. And he says it's all about the candidate's ability to connect with people's emotion. Clinton was able to do that. Bush was able to do that. Obama definitely was able to do that. There was something emotive there in the gut. I'm not feeling it quite as much.
Every election comes to that. So in the Kerry one, it was who would you rather have a beer with, Kerry or Bush? Won it big. In the Obama one, it was who do you most identify with? Obama 87%, Romney 30%. We're going to end it with, I'm going to ask one question, and then I'm going to give you an inside view. Keep in mind, Mike and I both said kind of lean towards Harris of who we think would win, not who we're voting for, but who we think would win. Now, with that said, I don't want to ask who you're going to vote for. That's not what I'm asking. How many people, by raise of hand, think Kamala Harris will be the next president of the United States?
I want to say 55%.
How many think Trump will be the next president? Okay.
Yeah, maybe 60-40.
I'll tell you one interesting piece that I saw this week. A person that Mike and I worked with on this No Labels is a guy by the name of Mark Halprin. Mark is a pretty plugged-in, kind of inside Washington political person. He hates Trump, so that's important to put out. He came out in his podcast this week and says the Democrats, for the first time, are looking and favoring that Trump will actually be elected. It will be interesting.
I'm sorry, the Democrats what are saying?
The Democrats he's talking to for the first time are actually saying they think Trump actually will be elected.
So they're voting that Trump would win. Okay.
So
that's
but it is so close, and it is so close. The bottom line is nobody knows, but keep in mind you're going to have to stay up very late on November 5th.
Well, I don't know.
Which roughly is November 8th or 9th.
If you're right, that's not true. It's like Pennsylvania's in the East Coast.
But Pennsylvania is the one that didn't get their votes counted.
Oh, that's true. That's true.
Thank you very much. We appreciate it.
Bye.
Great job. Thank you so much. Appreciate you so much. A book is going to be placed in your honor at the Jack Lowe Senior Elementary School for being here with us. That's a big payday for you, I know. Next week, we have Laura Marek, who is going to be speaking about Souls for Souls, and Eric Harrison is going to be our chair of the day for that. Now we're going to be involved in the four-way test. Siobhan Abraham, are you going to come and lead us in the four-way test? Siobhan? Come on up.
All right, the four-way test. Of the things we think, say, or do. First, is it the truth? Second, is it fair to all concerned? Third, will it build goodwill and better friendships? Fourth, will it be beneficial to all concerned?
Thank you. We're through.